Hey y'all, I'm gonna wait a few seconds, see if some people join us. Alright, phone's holder's a little loose. Alright, so I don't have a lot of battery power, so I'm gonna go ahead and start, and just want to encourage you to share this, share it with friends that you know that may be in need of inner healing or are just on a journey with God and struggling with some things. I just really feel like this is an encouraging word for you. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, whoever's there. Please let me know who's joining us. Hoping I can see your comments. But feel free to share this post. And also, I'm going to later on put a link to my website. But, sorry, got up. Oh, okay, I'm still there. I lost you. Anyway, okay, so this is what the Lord has given me. I actually went to share this last week, and it didn't work. It didn't load. So I just feel like the Lord wants me to share this. The last several weeks, God's just opened the door for me to be able to work with people that are struggling with emotional healing. Hi, Natalie. And I'm just excited to be able to work with people and to see healing and freedom. But one of the things that I have noticed a lot, and I was asking the Lord about, and He had just given me a picture of, is how oftentimes when we begin the process of walking through healing, or we're struggling in an area and we want breakthrough, we have a tendency to search and search and search. And sometimes in the process of that searching out, trying to figure out what can bring healing, what can help us, instead of finding freedom and healing, we end up being overcome by fear, or like I must have this disease, or I must have this problem, or I'm demon possessed, or I'm whatever. We can have a tendency to try to self-diagnose, or name off what's causing our issue. I mean, I've even seen it in the church where they'll say, well, you have this spirit, or you have that. And I am not saying that those things are not true, but what I'm saying is this. I was asking the Lord about it because God did not come to give us a spirit of fear, but of sound. He came to give us a sound mind and a sound heart. He came to give us freedom and healing and love. So anything that is bringing us fear, I do not believe is from the Lord. And I was just brought back to something I heard a while ago, but I just really felt like the Lord was highlighting it the last 2 weeks, which is what tree are you eating from? A lot of us will search for things, and in the process of searching, we find things that they're not. It's not that they're bad things. It's just that it's not meant for us. And you look at the story of Adam and Eve, and Adam and Eve were created in the image and likeness of God. And He created them to be free and to be whole, and to be in a relationship. They were given authority over the earth. That was a powerful thing. That was their inheritance. But the enemy, which was Satan, came and lied and told them that if they ate from this one tree that God told them they could not eat from, that they would be like God. And because of that, they thought, oh, that's something I don't have. Well, I want to be like God. So they went and they ate from that tree. But instead of finding something greater, all they ended up doing was finding something that brought fear, that brought shame. And what God had given them, He loves us. He wants us to have a choice. He wants us to have the ability to choose what we are going to engage in. But by engaging in this tree of knowledge of good and evil, what they were able to do was suddenly everything they were able to say, oh, well, that's good, that's bad. And they were able to begin to, they had to judge things, because now they were not walking out of the trust of the Lord and what He was saying. They were walking out of their own understanding. And what God was showing me is how often, even in our own walks with the Lord, sometimes we go to Him and we ask Him, Father, can you show us what we need to do? Or, I have areas in my life where I need to do something, and I have a tendency, my first response is to go out and ask a whole bunch of people that I know about that subject. What should I do? What do you think about this? And all I end up doing is getting myself frustrated and confused, and oftentimes I get too many mixed messages. And we can do that in our own life, in any situation where we begin to search out information from this person and information from this person, and even from the scriptures, and it's all really good information, but because it's so much, it can look like the opposite, and it just brings confusion, and sometimes it can bring fear and struggle. Hi, Amy, how are you? And in the process of doing that, instead of us receiving life, we end up receiving confusion. We can end up being frustrated by what we're listening to and what we're seeing. But I believe when we are walking out a relationship with the Lord, when we're dealing with things out of our relationship with God, what happens is what we begin to see is that instead of trying to figure it out on our own, we can ask the Lord for insight. And sometimes He doesn't give us a direct answer. Sometimes He says, well, what do you want to do? Which is what He's done for me sometimes. But I realize He will lead me. It says He leads us in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. And I believe that there are times that when we're going through a situation, He's going to direct us along paths. He's going to bring things to our attention that we need to look into. But I just really want to encourage you, when you're struggling with something, instead of pulling every single resource that's out there, asking God, what do you want me to check into this? And really be aware. If you don't have a peace when you're reading something, put it down, or just give that information that you've received back to Him and say, Lord, show me what I need to learn, and everything else I just give it back to you. But people that are going through inner healing, oftentimes they will hear teachings, and there's great teachings out there. I mean, Dan Duvall has some amazing teachings, but there's also a lot of dark things that they talk about. And if we continue to just listen to that and listen to things that are all negative, what ends up happening is all we think about is the negative instead of seeing the goodness of God. And even with inner healing, if we focus on all of our junk and not the goodness of God in that time of healing, what can end up happening is we become so self-absorbed by our problems that we don't see that there is life in us. And I just want to encourage you, if you are going through emotional healing, you're going through an area where you're struggling with something, that God has created you, even in this place, to be used by Him. You are not disqualified. You are not disqualified to be who He's created you to be, no matter what you're walking through, no matter what situation you're in. Even when you're going through a tough time, God can still use you. And the enemy wants us to focus completely on our problems, and by doing that, it shuts down the things that God is doing in us. And I'm not saying not to focus on your issues, because there are times that God's going to bring stuff up, and it's because He wants to bring healing, and that's an important part. We do need to get healed. We do need to face those issues. When we're struggling with something, I like to say it, when something triggers me, I realize now, okay, this isn't a bad thing. It's a time where I need to bring that thing that caused me to get emotionally upset about something to the Lord and say, God, what do you want to do with this? And oftentimes He'll show me exactly what's going on. But here's the great part. We don't have to live out of that. We don't have to live out of our brokenness. When we struggle with something, we can bring that to the Lord, get healing. If we're not at a place that we can get healing, we can ask the Father, what we can do in that moment, and then leave the rest at His feet till we can deal with it. I encourage you to connect with someone to pray. I do emotional healing. There's other people out there that do this, and it's so important. There's people that they feel like, we talk about the finished work of the cross, and they think, oh, I'm already healed. I'm already whole, so I don't have to worry about that. But yet, deep inside, they're still struggling with stuff, and they're struggling because there's an area there that still needs to come in agreement with the Lord. And it doesn't mean that you aren't. Jesus did die. He died so that you can be free. And by his stripes, you are made whole. You are free. But there's times that there's areas in us that still don't understand that. When our heart is broken by something, there's parts of us that are still walled off and carrying those emotions. And we can carry them all our lives if we're not willing to allow Jesus to meet with those parts of us and bring healing. And that's why I want to encourage people to continue to walk through that, but don't live out of that. You don't have to every day continue to walk in that shame. And I know there's times that people are walking with very heavy hearts, with things that are causing them deep pain. And I'm not. This isn't to say that you can that you can just step out of it. I know there's times that there's people that are hurting, and I believe in those are the people that God wants to heal the most, because you need to be whole and to be free. And but still, even in the midst of those struggles, God can use you powerfully. You are loved by Him. You are His son. You are His daughter. And He's put something special, something amazing inside you. And if you don't know what that is, I will encourage you to ask Him, to seek Him with all your heart, because He loves you so much. He has such a plan for you, and it's important for you to know that. You do not have to try to figure it out on your own. You don't have to go searching through books. You don't even have to go to college to figure it out. God is, He's an amazing God, and He's talking all the time. He loves you, and He wants to connect with you. But, I just want to speak to those that have been struggling with fear. It says His perfect love casts out all fear. And, we will go through times where there's things that make us afraid. There's things that we're struggling with. We may even feel like we've been tormented by areas in our lives. We may be around family members, or you might be around a situation that you can't get out of. But something that happened to me a couple weeks ago was I was spending time with the Lord, and He took me to this place. It was like a banqueting table, and I sat with Jesus, and we were eating, and I was just in His arms, and it was just this wonderful moment with Him. And I looked up, and there in front of me was the enemy. It was fear. I was looking at fear, and I was looking at despair, and I was looking at these very ugly, dark things that represented emotions in me. But I also realized this represented the demonic things that had been attacking me in the last couple years, and they were ugly, and I really did not want to see them. But at that moment, He said, "It's okay. Remember, He prepares a table for us in the presence of our enemies." When He prepares a table, that's a safe place. When we come and sit down to a meal, that's a place that we can come and enjoy. And God has given us the ability, when we're spending time with Him, we can be in a rough situation, but find peace and find joy in the midst of that, in our relationship with God. And I want to encourage you, if you don't have that, to seek it, to seek after Him, because He wants that for you. He wants you to be able to walk through those situations and not to be overcome by them, not to allow them to, sorry, I have a fly that's flying around here. Anyway, I'm not just waiting, but He wants you to be able to have freedom in the midst of that. So I hope this helps. I just declare His love over you right now. I believe there's some of you that have been struggling with fear and even nightmares, and I speak life to you, and I believe this week God is going to begin to remind you of dreams that you've had, about him, that there's been dreams that he's given you. And I just want to encourage you to ask Jesus to come into those nightmares and to restore them. My daughter was having nightmares at one point, and in these nightmares, she saw this clown that was taking her friends away, and she was so afraid, and she came in, and I asked her, I said, why don't you ask Jesus to come and to restore things? And she went back to bed, and she had a dream, and the clown was there again, but what happened was Jesus came in and got in between her and the clown, and he took this blanket that the clown had been using to take her friends away and threw it over the clown's head, and the clown disappeared. And it was like suddenly she was like, wow, Jesus saved the day. And it just changed her perspective. She was like, I don't have to live with that anymore. I don't have to be afraid of that anymore, because God gave her a new picture. And I'm not saying he's gonna come into your dreams. I believe he will if you ask him. But it may even be that he's going to show you a different perspective on something that's been tormenting you. He's going to give you a different view. And I just declare that over you this week, that you'll begin to see even your struggles, your daily struggles, the things that you've been living with in a different light. Oftentimes, when we're struggling, it's because it's an area that God has called us to be powerful in, and the enemy doesn't like it. But you are powerful. You were created to be mighty for him. And I hope this blesses you. Again, I encourage you to share this post, especially if you know anyone that's been hurting, they're struggling with fear or with emotional pain. I will put my my website out there, and maybe some other resources for people that are looking for emotional healing, for spirit-led inner healing. There's something new. There's a great book out there called Broken to Whole, and it talks about, a deeper form of healing. A lot of times people have gone through emotional healing, but they've only dealt with the outside surface. And there's sometimes things that are deeper. There's those broken parts that we haven't dealt with, and God wants to bring healing to them. So I'll put a couple links out there. But thanks for joining me today, and I hope to do this again soon.